So, Mamello, I think let's first begin by taking us through who you are and what it is you actually do.
So I'm currently right now a PhD student at the University of Cape Town. My PhD is in political studies department, but my focus is on disinformation and politics generally. And I'm also a researcher at an NGO called Open Secrets, and we investigate corporate crime and corruption as it relates to human rights violations.
Something quite interesting about you is that you have a huge issue with digital footprint, and you've decided to be very private about this. What led to that?
I think it was when I was younger, and the first big incident was when Edward Snowden came out and the whole NSA data leak, and I was just like, oh my God, they collect all our data. I hadn't been as aware of how I was using Google up until that moment, where I was like, I've linked so many services to Google, and it feels like even in your own home, you're not private. And I think I was quite young back then. I was like in my early 20s, even 19 possibly. And I was just like, no, I don't want people following me when I don't know them.
But then, how do you go about removing your digital footprint? What were some of the first steps that you took to try and erase your information?
It wasn't so much erasing it, more so tightening it up. I started following protocols like you change your password more regularly, maybe 3 months. Every 3 months, I change my password logins, and also services that say login using Google. I've definitely stopped logging in using Google. I create new accounts for those things rather than Google collecting data across platforms. And then I do basic things like I clean up my internet history or cache every once in a while. I've also gone off a couple of social media sites that I do not view as safe anymore. So I don't give up my location, stuff like that. It's basically very simple little things, not to completely erase my presence, but to just make me feel safer, and that whatever is out there is with my consent.
What have been some of your biggest concerns, especially on these various social media platforms, that led to you, in what people would think has been quite a drastic action?
I think the most drastic action for me happened after 2018-17 is when the stories about Cambridge Analytica started coming out, and how they use big data or data from Facebook, data about people's profiles, who they hang out with, and they connected them with all their friends. And they use that to kind of manipulate the US elections or radicalize people who weren't necessarily as radical as having to vote for Donald Trump. People like that eventually turn more towards the right, based on how Cambridge Analytica was able to harness their data and use it to motivate them to vote for someone that they wouldn't necessarily had voted for. And those people had their data collected completely without their knowledge. Facebook sold it to this company without their knowledge, without their consent. And it alerted me to the fact that not only was data being compromised, but also that data had become this commodity that Facebook makes money out of, and you as the user do not have any idea that that's happening.
With the kind of work that you do and working with an NGO that deals with these sort of things, are your concerns mainly about safety, or about the fact that big corporates are using this to profit from your information?
It's about safety, and it's also about the manipulation of our democracies, and it's about a human right. I think increasingly, as the world moves towards a more digital space, we are seeing that the internet and our data is a human right, because it's about our right to privacy, even our right to freedom of conscience, really, if it's possible for you to be manipulated over the internet. But also it is about big corporations profiting off of this.
You see, you're using big words now. when you start saying things like optimizing and so on, it would almost like flies over our heads. But make it make sense to me, though. When you say that they're optimizing this data and using it and manipulating it so that they're able to make profits, what does that mean? What does it mean to an ordinary person that uses Facebook, that uses WhatsApp, that uses the various social media platforms?
So if you're just hanging out on Facebook and you're interacting with a certain group of people, you're discussing things that you guys all like. You're gonna click things that you like together. You're gonna linger on certain photos, linger on certain conversations. Sometimes you'll click on ads, and sometimes on Facebook you'll buy stuff through people. Facebook collects all of that data. None of that is insignificant to them. So you may just think you're having a casual conversation and say you really like dogs and you like dogs, 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 and you're liking pictures of dogs, you're putting up pictures of your own dogs. And eventually Facebook gets that you're a great big dog person. And who do they sell that data to? To a company that wants to sell you more dog stuff. So oftentimes, if you go on Facebook, the ads that you'll see on Facebook, the ads that you'll see on Instagram, or any other third-party apps or apps that are related to Facebook that use that data will start showing you more and more dog things. Because what these social networks were meant to do in the first place was to connect people far from each other, connect people that are different from each other. And what you're seeing is that a lot of the times it's actually dividing people even more and more, because it's showing you what either you agree with very much or what you disagree with a lot. And what you agree with very much can sometimes lead to radicalization.
Are people aware, though? Do you think the general South African is aware of, you know, the influence of the digital media or social media on their lives?
I would say a lot of people are aware, but not they're not cautious about it.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, I know people are taking my data. Yeah, I put it out there and I write my status and I include all of this because it's actually nice that, you know, I get ads that I like. And also a lot of people assume it's just over the internet that their data is being used. So they think it's something when they're on their phone or on their laptop. Don't really think of it as like, I go to the bank and give them all my data. And then I go to this agency and I give them all my data and I sign up for this thing and they catalog it into their system. I don't think people really think it goes that far or is that integrated until they get a phone call from a political party. And you're like, how did this political party get my phone number?
Is there something that you can actually do when you do get that phone call? And what are some of the measures you've put into place to make sure that that does not happen?
I question contracts. I question them all the time. If I'm signing a contract in person and I see something about the use of my data or privacy or content stuff, then I genuinely query it and I ask them, like, who do you give our data to? Who do you sell it to? And if I did not give them permission to give my data out, which I really do, then of course I will query it and I'll call them and I'll be like, I did not appreciate that.
That then brings into question how this needs to be legislated. Where does government then even begin? I mean, they've got the personal, the Papaya Act, which has now been promulgated. But how effective will it be, and can government actually get a grip on it?
I do not know, because this follows something that the EU also has, and how it's going to regulate how that data is collected is very much it's up to the corporations and up to the corporations obeying the regulators, but it's also up to regulators actually going after cases where they do see misuse. When people do report, it's up to them to take action, because if they can't monitor, at least let it be punitive for you to actually go against the laws. So I think it's going to be it's going to be quite a big learning curve, because it's going to require something that the government has yet to do. And also it's going to require them to act as very strict regulators. And it's quite good that of some of the penalties that we see out there for corporations, this is one of the highest. It's great to see that there's some sort of threat or something to disincentivize people from actually using our data in negative ways.
So, Mamello, let's speak a little bit about this issue of Papaya and the act that has now been put into place. How safe do you think people's personal information is, and how safe or how comfortable does it make you feel that this act has been put into place?
A little bit not that safe yet. I think South Africa is one of those countries that has a lot of great laws, and then carry through or follow through is not as great as the law that's in place. I wonder how they're going to retroactively apply that to companies that have already sold our data. What do those companies do now? What are their management systems in place? Is there a reporting facility? Who manages this system?
But the average South African, they're not aware of this. What can they do to then protect themselves against things like this? Because you're certainly aware of it and you're doing something about it. And as you said earlier on, people might know, but they're not cautious.
So one of the easiest things you can do is clear the cache on your computer. Make sure that you clear it like once a month or so. And also log out of your accounts. Do not leave automatic sign-ins on your browsers, on your phone. Google sometimes also collects your voice, so you can hear recorded conversations or recorded things when you didn't know that Google was listening in on you. So it's really important to review your privacy settings. The more you do those little things, the harder it is to get at your information.
Mamello, it would be also quite interesting to get your general feeling about, private corporations, especially within South Africa. You look at all the big insurers, and there's a lot of companies, even locally, that use data in a specific way. So how do you feel about them mining that data and how they use it?
I don't feel comfortable with them mining that data at all. I don't know who, first of all, they sell it to, because the digital world is borderless, so they could sell it to anyone. And also, what are they using it for? I don't think that when I sign up for a bank card, or when I sign up for something simple, that should now open me up to a construction company, a real estate firm, law firm. I don't think that data should be sold to anyone else. It means that they're profiting off of people without really letting them know that they're making extra profits. Like, our data is a commodity, but we're the people that are losing at the end of the day, because we don't have the right to sell that data. We're giving it away for free. They're storing it and selling it as they like. And no one knows what happens to that data. They're selling it, and also they're not selling it to anyone who you know or could give your consent to. So I think it's very scary for me that that's happening. And it also seems very unfair in a country that is so unequal, for big corporations that already have a lot of money to be able to continue to abuse people without their knowledge, and then continue to profit extremely from that, is something that's just, I think it's outright questionable morally.